Hello, everyone. Okay, welcome to the webinar. I'm so stoked to have you guys on here. This webinar is called 5 Truths Your Child Needs You to Know About Emotions. Super excited to have you on here with me. Hello, I'm up in this little box up here. And basically, I just can't wait to get into this webinar with you guys. Now, first of all, the reason I set this up as a webinar that you can start and stop is because, for starters, I'm a parent. We know what it's like, okay? I know you're probably going to get 10 minutes to watch a bit of this, and then maybe you have to stop and keep doing something else and then come back to it. If you can watch the whole thing in one go, you're going to get so much more value, but I understand. I'm a parent. I've been watching webinars myself bit by bit as I can. All right, so that's why we've got a replayable one here. But basically, I can't wait to get started, and thanks so much for joining me. Okay, first of all, before we get too much more into this, who am I? Okay, so if you clicked on something and you don't know who I am, okay, I am Miranda. My name is Miranda Hodge. Welcome to my webinar. I run Smart Mama, Smart Kids Parenting, and I started off as an online blog, and then I moved into parent coaching, and I'm a teacher. I create online courses, and I run parenting masterclasses for for parents of 0 to 6 year olds, okay, as a coach. Also, I'm a mama. I've got 3 gorgeous kids of my own. I've got 2-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old in the middle. Okay, you can see a bit of a picture of them there. I also have a husband. Okay, his name's Ross, and we have 2 dogs and a cat, and we love camping and fun. Okay, so if you are someone who has children, I totally know about it. I've worked with kids forever, and as I say, I'm a teacher and I've got my own children. So if you want to learn about emotions, this is what I know a lot about, and I can't wait to share some of this stuff with you guys. All right, so that's a little bit about me. As I mentioned, what do I do? I am a coach. I'm a parenting coach for parents of 0 to 6 year olds. I've got my own masterclasses on my website. So I've got 3 so far. Stop That Whining. Hello. Time In or Time Out. That's another really great one for toddler parents. And I've also got one called How to Teach Your Child to Listen. Okay, so these are, my masterclasses are 1 hour, roughly 1 hour, and they all have a really great workbook with them that you can write all your answers in and write all the things that you learn in, so that you get a lot of value out of that 1 hour masterclass. Okay, so they're available on my website. I do online courses. I've got a course called the Learning Emotions course. Okay, and I sometimes run it as a coaching program, but it's always available as a self-paced course for parents. Okay, I've also got another one called Address the Attitude that's coming up soon, and that's another really fun course as well. And last but not least, I do coaching sessions. Okay, so if you want a free 30-minute interview session with me, and you want to start working on what you do with your kids, working on their emotions, working on your reactions, any of those sorts of things, I do one-on-one online coaching for in this sort of format. So via Zoom a lot of the time. Okay, so that's what I do, basically. So that's me. Let's get going. Just before we keep going, I've got a cup of tea for starters. If you've seen my Instagram, you'll know I love my Rise and Shine mug. Makes me get going. If you haven't already, stop right now. Jump on my Empowered Motherhood Facebook group. Okay, just search Empowered Motherhood and you'll see something like that picture come up. It's through Smart Mama, Smart Kids, my Facebook page, my business page, and I do regular lives on there. I do regular info sessions and things like that. Okay, it's great to be a part of. It's completely free, great to be a part of, and I pop resources up in there too from time to time. Excuse me. Also, I'm going to be having a sip of tea as we go through bit by bit. Alrighty, so let's get going. I'm a pen and paper sort of girl, so I'm surrounded by pen and paper. You just can't see it behind this screen, but I've got paper everywhere. So if you're a pen and paper person, write this down. As I said, the masterclasses actually have a workbook with them. Okay, the webinar doesn't have a workbook, but that's okay because you'll be able to grab a pen and paper and just write down the 5 truths as we go. Okay, let's get ready. Let's get straight into it. Number 1, emotions are part of human experience. Okay, imagine living in a world without emotions. Imagine how it would look. Imagine how it would feel or wouldn't feel because you don't have an emotion. Okay, emotions are an integral part of all of us and we need them. Living without emotion would be like living without colour and watching Netflix would not be as fun. And let me see, what else is there? Interaction with other people wouldn't be as fun. I'm just setting a timer on my watch to make sure that I don't go for too long. And look, there'd be lots and lots of things that aren't as fun, because basically to experience life really fully, you need to have emotions. Okay, so why do our kids need us to know this? Because emotions are normal. Okay, so when your child's feeling angry, that's okay. Okay, when you're feeling angry, it's okay. Okay, it's what you do when you're angry that's actually what we need to work on sometimes, or what your child does when they're angry. Okay, emotions are okay. It is all right to have emotions. Okay, so our kids need us to know that, because we don't want to have the expectation on them or ourselves that we can't actually show an emotion. Okay, so for a lot of years it was kids should be seen and not heard, and people didn't show, you know, the whole what do you call it, poker face sort of thing. You don't have to be like that. You're allowed to be a human, you're allowed to have emotions, and you're allowed to show them. Okay, it is actually fine. All right, so that's one thing that our kids really, really need us to be able to show ourselves, but we need to give our kids the grace and the ability to have space to show their emotions and to acknowledge them. So Eric Barker wrote an article, it's called How to Raise Happy Kids, 10 Steps Backed by Science. How's that for a long title? By Eric Barker. Emotional intelligence, this is his quote, emotional intelligence is a skill, not an inborn trait. Thinking kids will just naturally come to understand their own emotions, let alone those of others, doesn't set them up for success. What that's saying basically is that we need to teach our kids emotional intelligence. They ain't going to learn it by themselves, or they're not going to learn it as effectively by themselves. Okay, and do we want to set our kids up with just enough to get through life? No, we want to be able to give them whatever we can, but it's up to us as parents to actually start doing that. Okay, I'll just change my little script over. We actually have to teach our kids emotional intelligence. Okay, which is why we're here. That's why you're doing this webinar, because you want to know how to do it. And I've got some really, really great things to be able to share with you as a part of this. Okay, so there we go. Have a smell of it. If you smell the salty air at the beach, this is just talking about your emotions. You can feel things, okay? Not just the smell, but the way that picture of the beach, for instance, makes you feel. When you see your grandma's house or think of your grandma, when you do things like eat pizza, hello, have we got an emotion associated with pizza? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. Watch your child receive an award. These are all things that make your life a richer and better experience. So we don't want to give our kids the impression that they can't actually experience emotion, because hello, we all need to do that. We all need to experience emotion in order to make life actual life. Okay? There you go. So that is point one. Didn't take long to get there, did it? Okay. So if we didn't have to go through the harder and more difficult emotions, we wouldn't appreciate the better ones. So basically, if you don't go into the lower stuff, and I know hard things happen in life and it is never fun to deal with, but if you didn't go through that harder stuff, you wouldn't actually know what a good time was. You wouldn't know what the better emotions were. Okay, so you wouldn't know what it was like or appreciate being happy so much if you've never been sad. Okay, so that's just one of those things that we want to remember, because yeah, all right, difficult emotions are really hard, and it is really hard to manage them. Sometimes it's really hard to process them, but is it worth it? Yes, because then you have got sharp relief to show what the good emotions or the happy emotions or the higher emotions are actually doing. So you can just appreciate them so much more. Here we go. Okay, on to number 2. Time for a cup of tea. Okay, so emotions are needed socially. Okay, others can tell how we're feeling through our emotions. Part of being a human is interacting with others, and that involves emotions, right? Okay, so for instance, kids on the ASD spectrum with autism can often struggle with social cues and empathy because they often can't read emotion well. Okay, and I don't want to be general, I mean, everyone is different, but often that is something that comes along with being on the ASD spectrum. Okay, so they can often struggle with social cues, which means What does that mean for the child? It means they need more explicit or more specific teaching of emotion language and facial clues, for instance, in the age group we're talking about, or even a bit above. So not just 2 to 6 year olds, but probably at least 2 to 8 year olds when it comes to children with ASD. They need often need more training or more help to go, that's what that social, that's what that person is displaying. That's the emotion they're displaying. Oh yes, they've got cross eyebrows and their mouth is going, That's the sort of thing that you talk to kids about. It is literally that basic for any child in the age group we're talking about, because they need to understand what those emotions look like and what they look like on themselves and what they feel like in themselves. And this is a huge thing that we talk about in my Learning Emotions course, okay? Because we talk about and we do a lot of work on how to get kids to understand what emotions feel like and look like in their own bodies. Okay, so I talk to the parents about how to help their children understand that just a little bit more. So, for instance, I'm just going to put this in an example, and I've used this example a few times, is if a child in the schoolyard has got sticks, or at kinder or in daycare has got a stick and they're angry, as an adult, we will probably see that fairly quickly. That person's angry, not going to go near them because they've got a stick, and until you're dealing with the child, obviously. But a child who doesn't have emotional intelligence or hasn't been taught much about emotions, then they possibly might go near that child because they don't understand that their face is angry. They might just wander over to that child and go, oh, hello, you've got a stick. Let's play sword fights, or can I have a go? Or whatever it is that the child says. They could say any of those things because they haven't been able to read the child's emotion on their face or in their body language. Okay, one of the things that I remember reading or hearing Tony Robbins say is that, 93% of what we say, or the communication we have with others, is actually not with words. So there's only 7% with words. And I was just blown away by that, for starters. As someone who works with words on the daily, I am someone who, does a lot of word stuff. And I was like, wow, I can't believe people are getting anything that I'm communicating, they're getting 93% of it from my body language. That is and facial expressions and things like that. That's insane, for starters. So our kids need to be able to read that stuff, not perfectly. No one is perfect, but whatever tools we can give them are really, really important. Yes, for their safety, so they don't get hit with a stick, but to build friendships and to build understanding between each other, and to do teamwork together as they get older, and to understand family dynamics. So things like sibling rivalry or like fighting in between siblings. If you can see that your sister's angry, then don't go up to her and ask her if you can use her favorite pencil, because she's probably going to say no because she's angry. Maybe just wait a while. Okay, same thing with parents. If I'm literally red in the face and I'm really annoyed because another child's annoyed me, coming up right now and asking for something or asking me to do something might be just a little bit not the greatest timing. So things like that are really, really helpful within families, understanding emotions, understanding the social implications. Kids aren't expected to understand it all, of course, but to start teaching them early is very, very helpful for them, and really, really helpful for a parent, because if that child hasn't gone to sister and asked for a pencil and sister's told them off, that child's then not upset, and we don't have to come in and try and mediate the situation. Okay, so that's also a really huge bonus, okay, for us as parents. Will our kids learn this from other people? Yes, they will learn some of this stuff from other people. Yes, if your kids are at daycare, they will start to learn some of this stuff. But the person at daycare is not their full-time parent. The person at daycare is not the person who is responsible ultimately for that child. The person at daycare is not the person who buys their Christmas presents. They're not the person who cuddles them when they've hurt their knee or they fall over or they have a bad dream. Okay? Not consistently anyway. So that's okay, but it's up to us as parents. Okay? Parents are over and above the biggest carers of their children, the people with the most responsibility, and the person with the most influence in their child's life. Okay, so it's not up to someone else to do, it's up to you to do, and it's up to me to do with our children. Okay, so there we go. So they can learn some of this stuff, and you might just be helping it along a little bit, but if you can cover it too as well with that extra consistency, then you are helping your child so much. Let's go to the next one. Teaching your child about social, emotion, and emotions early helps them learn so much more effectively and puts them on the front foot for learning and for life. So another little scenario for you. I'm a teacher. I have many such scenarios. But if you think about school, and I know we're talking about a little bit earlier, even in kinder, okay, you can tell as a teacher which children have often been talked to about their emotions. Okay, and every child is different and they develop differently and take different things in at different times. That's completely normal. Okay, so I'm not saying that this child, more mature children have been taught more, not necessarily, but you can quite often tell by the strategies the child chooses to use. Okay, so if you've got little Johnny who's poking your child and your child's going, I really don't want them to do that, a child who might not be able to understand their emotions as much or understand what's going on as much is probably likely to just get really angry and push him away, right? Or shout at him or cry or whatever it is. And that's normal and fine and it's developmentally okay. But imagine how much more helpful it is for your child and for the teacher, just quietly, but for your child and for the other child, if they say, stop, I don't like that, I don't want you to do that anymore. The child keeps doing it and they get up and move away. Or they get up and go and tell the teacher instead of flying into a rage. Or they take 3 deep breaths themselves and really use that strategy, even if they end up getting cross. If they can use a strategy and try to calm themselves down, that is so effective. And it means that your child is right there with the emotional understanding, okay, to a point, to their age level. That's completely fine. We don't expect 4-year-olds to be, understanding things like a 20-year-old. That's fine. Okay, but if you can see them and give them strategies to deal with that stuff beforehand, you've given them such a boost in the right direction. Okay, and again, this is a lot of the stuff that we cover in our Learning Emotions course. So it's so important. This stuff is just so important. Okay, all right, let's get on to number 3. Emotions are temporary. This is really interesting. I think all of this is interesting, but emotions are not a permanent state of being. Okay, they're fickle, they're ever changing, and they're really temporary. Okay, people can be happy people, yes, and there are people who are more inclined to be sadder people, yes, and more people who are more inclined to be more anxious. Of course there are. Everyone is different, and genetics sometimes come into it, I think, as well as, just different people's personalities and those sorts of things. But when it comes to emotions, they are basically temporary. So happiness can come in, but 5 minutes later, sadness might also come in. You might have happiness for a while, they come in and sort of swirl around and then they go back out again. Okay, I remember watching a webinar with Renee from Go Zen, and this is what she talked about. And I was like, wow, that is actually so enlightening and so true. Okay, these things come in and then they go back out. Okay, which means if you've ever had a toddler, which I'm assuming you might have, if you haven't got one now, you've had one recently, you will know that the temporary nature of emotions is extremely obvious with toddlers. They can flick from one emotion to the other, and suddenly you're like, whoa, that's insane. Even preschoolers are the same. Okay, we're obviously talking about that whole age group. Okay, they can change, emotions are temporary, they move around quickly and go, boom, hang on a second. Now you're really angry for some reason. Oh, you're happy again. Okay. It's really based on circumstance and on what's going on around them. And the same is true as parents, right? For instance, do you know what causes your emotions to change from relaxed and calm to angry or irritable? Do you know? For me, I know that this happens when I get overwhelmed when my kids all ask me questions at once, for instance, which is what actually started off my journey. Some of that is what started off my journey into coaching. I want to help mamas be proactive and be intentional. Okay. So this can and by the way, that demonstrates the nature of emotions and how they're temporary. If I can see an emotion coming and I can know that I'm usually flip out at that particular point? Well, I know that it's coming, and I also know that in 2 hours after that, or an hour or whatever after that, I'm probably going to be fine. Okay, so for me, that really demonstrates the point. The emotions come in and they move through us. Okay, and we know they're not going to be here forever. Doctors have discovered, I'm reading this slide, but anyway, doctors have discovered that children whose parents focus on the positive in them and the world from early on, so from when they're small children, really small, are often more mentally equipped to see the positive in their own surroundings, even when circumstances are difficult. Okay, so I love this because it means that you can teach your child to have a happier, more positive mindset. Yes, they're not going to constantly be at happy because happiness is an emotion, but if you focus on the positive, you're going to help them pull the happy out of whatever's happening, okay, as much as they can. All right, and why is this important? This is important because I have seen the difference that it has from one generation, older generation, to the next generation, because the one in between decided to focus on the positive. Okay, so the older generation, for instance, may have, didn't help their kids focus on the positive, didn't help them find the good things around them, treated them really badly, all those sorts of things. But the next generation chose, and I'm using the word chose really, really intentionally, chose to be more positive about their surroundings, to help their children look for the positive, because it's really hard to when you haven't been bred like that, or you haven't been shown how to do that consistently from early on. But people can choose, you can choose to make the difference for your children by intentionally looking for the positive and talking about it with them. So if you can find the positive in their surroundings, if you can talk to them about the good things around them, look at this, I love that this happens, or I really like this about you, or, how great is it that grandma could come today, or whatever it is, okay? This is going to help them build those neural pathways, which are like roadways in the brain. That's my understanding of them. Roadways in the brain. You are building positive connections in your brain, in your child's brain, that they can start to use. And the more you use them, the more practice they get, and they turn into proper, like literal highways in the brain. Okay? So they're mentally equipped to see the positive, and you're helping them get a lifelong ability to see the positive in situations. Okay, this is epic and so amazing for us as parents, especially if you come from a household that was not positive. You can choose, it's hard, but you can choose to choose the positive and find the positive so your kid grows up with a much more positive outlook. Okay, I think this is amazing, and it is life-changing. That particular one is life-changing for your kids and for you as well. All right, let's go. Number 4. Okay, processing emotions. Processing emotions means to actually let the emotion into your body and then work through it. This involves accepting that emotion. Often with hard or painful emotions, we can resist them. Okay, we can push hard against them, and this can cause us to hold them in our body. Stress, talked to the osteo about it numerous times, stress, anxiety, and internal chaos. This sort of causes all that stuff in our body and our mental state. Now, I'm not going to say that if you have anxiety or if you have stress or if you have internal chaos, that it's necessarily about emotions, but they can definitely impact that stuff, okay? So, giving our kids the tools and the emotional intelligence to know when to use them is part of our job as parents. So, how do we teach our kids how to process emotion? What do we do? How do we teach our kids how to do it? It's really hard. It can be really hard. Okay, so we talk a little bit about this in the Learning Emotions course, but we need to give ourselves grace to actually allow ourselves to process emotions. Yes, I'm having this emotion, accepting that. Yep. And we need to give ourselves space to actually go, oh yeah, I'm going to need time to deal with that. Like, it's not going to be sorted in 5 minutes. Okay, my child might not be sorted in 5 minutes, or they might be, depending on what the emotion is, because sometimes kids can, flip from one to the other. Okay, so we need to allow our emotions to exist even when they're painful. So acknowledging, you know what, in here, I can feel whatever it is. In here, I can feel that I've been sad, and that means I need to just allow that for a minute. Let's just stop and feel our emotions in ourselves, okay? And then we can move on and start talking about, I don't mean move on like move out of it. I mean, we can start actively trying to process it a bit more. So how can we help our kids do this, right? But this is like sort of adulty sort of sounding stuff. How can we help our kids process their emotions? So kids still need to process them too, especially if it's something that's happened that they can't work out in their head. Okay, if someone took their toy and they're angry, that maybe isn't that big a deal. But when you need to help your kids process things, here's some tools that might be helpful. Journaling. So this might mean kids talking and you writing for them at this stage and age that we're talking about. You want to be non-judgmental when you're going about that too. Okay, you want to, if you're writing for them, you just write down exactly what they say. That's all you need to do. You don't have to say, well, that's not what happened. No, you don't need to say any of that. This is their own spin on the situation. All right, just write it down. Or they could do drawing. Okay, so a good way of journaling when they're a small child, especially if they're sort of 3 to 6, is drawing. So you could draw what, you could draw the feeling if you want to, or you could draw what happened, or you could draw how that, yourself with your own, how you feel, so that, typical cartoon would be a little black cloud above a person if they were angry, but your child might not draw it like that, obviously. Just leave them to it, because it's about them expressing it. It's not about them doing it in a set format, or not about them doing it within the box that you've set for them. This is how my emotion make me feel, and this is what this is why. And they can start to draw it. Something else that I've just been doing in a challenge that I've been doing is physical activity. So physical activity is really, really great, especially when kids have been angry, because it can help them to move that anger, that feeling. I think it's a shot of adrenaline, with anger. I can't remember, please don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. So they have this big burst of energy a lot of the time with anger, which is why people can be full of, rage and lift things that are really heavy and all that sort of stuff. Okay, it's there for a reason. But sometimes our kids, we expect them to be calming down, but they've still got this pent up, bunch of energy hanging around inside them. Physical activity is amazing. Okay, so anything that's physical within reason. Okay, we don't want them, punching each other, but trampolines are really excellent for this, because they can be sort of multi-sensory, because they can roll on them and everything. Things like, that's right, a totem tennis set. This was really helpful for me when I was growing up, and I didn't know that was so helpful in this particular way, but it was really helpful, because I used to just bat the ball around by myself. Okay, it doesn't sound that physical, but it really was. Okay, so things like those, physical activity, running, hopping, jumping, getting them to move, go ride your bike for 5 minutes, whatever it is, can be really, really helpful. Another tool that is really, really helpful is introducing feelings language. Okay, and this is definitely in this age bracket, so 2, even 1-year-olds, but 1-ish to 6. Okay, introducing feelings language, and again, we cover this extensively in the Learning Emotions course. In my course, the feelings language is really, really important. So to know what it looks like to be angry, to know what it feels like to be angry, to be able to say, my tummy feels like lava, or to be able to say, I'm happy and I know that because I've got a smile on my face, or I'm sad because my chest feels tight, or I just, using the word sad, or this made me sad. Saying different things like that it just gives the kids the language and the vehicle to actually communicate how they feel. Okay, so feelings language is something I'm really big on, and again, something that we cover fairly well in the Learning Emotions course. And the last one that I've got here, so the last little tool, it's not really a tool to use with your child, but it's something that you want to be doing, is being open about how we feel sometimes as parents. Okay, we don't want to be open about how we feel about things that aren't really for kids to hear about. Okay, you don't want to be talking, too deeply about how you feel about, your child's estranged father to the child. That's not the sort of stuff I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I feel, like this because I'm really tired today. Or I feel a bit frustrated with you because you won't listen to what I'm saying. That's, let's be real, that's actually what we feel sometimes. Okay, those different feelings that are just, you know, sort of everyday feelings that are happening, because that's what your child has, then it's okay to share those things and go, yeah, I know how you feel because I felt angry before when, you know, I hit my toe on a rock, okay, or I felt, you know, whatever you felt. Talking to your children about emotions is really, really important. Something else, as I change my script again, something else that I really want to pop in here is things like Are You OK Day are so important. They are so helpful, especially for kids. Like, kids know what Are You OK Day is. They do it at school. We do it in, you know, I don't know whether they do it in kinder, but as they reach school, they will start to become more aware of Are You OK Day. The fear of feeling hard emotions can be minimized by teaching our kids it's actually okay to not feel okay all the time. And we sort of covered this in the first point. It's okay to process. It's okay to feel. Yes, that's actually fine. Okay? So let's not always just cover up the fact that we don't feel good. Okay? Or let's not tell our kids that they always have to feel amazing or get a happy smile on your face. Yes, if they're just moping around, you might choose to say, I think you could probably replace that with a smile, okay, or with a happier face. It's okay to say that, but you don't want to cover up real significant emotions by telling them to wipe that off their face and get a smile on. That's not really what we want to be doing, okay? There you go. So processing and feeling are needed. But do you know that you are able to give your child a better gift than any toy, any plastic thing, any wooden thing, anything, to be able to give your child strategies to emotionally process, strategies to help themselves move through those hard moments and those good moments in life really effectively, okay, and to properly process things. That is a much bigger gift than giving them, you know, any number of toys, because you're then giving them the ability to interact socially. You're then giving them the ability to be able to understand themselves a bit more. You're giving them the ability to be proactive, to be able to go, you know what, that usually happens when I feel cross. So what will I do so that I don't have to be put in that situation? Things like that. That is a lifelong, fully, continually giving gift. Emotional intelligence is so important for kids, okay, because they can keep it for their whole life. They can keep learning and they can start to understand themselves. It's really important. I sound like someone who's doing a webinar on this, but that's okay. Number 5. So we're up to the 5th truth. We need to know our own emotional indicators. Okay, so why does our child need us to know this? Because if we know our own emotional indicators, we can start to understand theirs. Okay, so emotional indicators, hang on a second, what are they? Okay, they are what I define as the actions and the feelings we experience consistently in a certain situation type. So, for instance, I mentioned before about my feelings of anger when my kids all asked me for things at once. Okay, little backstory. I realised after I had my 3rd baby that I was feeling this way in a common circumstance. So I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm really angry all the time. What? Not all the time, but often. What's going on and why do I feel like this? So I sat back and sort of assessed myself a bit. It was usually food time, tea time or breakfast. I was trying to get everyone food at once. Everyone's constantly talking at me from the other side of the bench, or they were under my feet. Anyone who's got lots of kids, hello. My eldest would be trying to get her own breakfast, but was constantly in my way or asking me for random combinations of food like maple syrup and Weet Bix and banana. Often my husband and I would also be trying to work it so we could sit down together to have breakfast. And if it was tea time, the baby would be screaming because that's the witching hour. And I would just be so angry. Okay, you get the idea. I've struggled big time with this for a while, but my emotional indicators were showing how I was usually feeling in the midst of this chaos. Emotional indicator, anger, shouting. Angry, shouting. That's what happened with me, and going, oh, and maybe crying later on because I couldn't deal with it all. But I displayed anger, irritability, snapping at everyone, and including my husband, who then would get annoyed with me and it would just spiral from there. I sat back and assessed myself and went, you know what? Why am I feeling so angry, for starters? And worked out it was actually born out of overwhelm. Okay, so not being able to do everything at once, and then feeling guilty and feeling like I'd never get to sit down, but feeling guilty because I couldn't keep up with everything at once. And now just sitting back, you know, coolly and having a look at it going, you know what, why should I be able to get 5 people's dinner all at the same time while they're all yelling at me? Why should I feel okay with that, for starters? But for me, it was more about the overwhelm. So the root cause of it, the root cause of me being angry and frustrated and yelling or being really irritable was the fact that I was in overwhelm in that moment. And that's really powerful, because then I can actually start putting in a strategy to help me deal with it. So knowing your own emotional indicators, that's actually emotional intelligence. Not just to see how we're feeling, but why, and to understand what caused this feeling. So why am I feeling this way? What has gone on to mean that, and they're sort of the same question, I suppose, but what's actually gone on? And then we can identify something that's going to help next time. Okay, and this is really, really pertinent for our kids. Okay, because if your child's really angry, you can go, hang on a second, why are they angry? Yeah, they're angry. Yes, I've got to deal with those symptoms. Okay, but instead of sticking a Band-Aid over the problem, why are they actually angry in the first place? Well, why have they flipped out? Even if you've got to do the calming strategies, and again, we do a bit of that as well in the Learning Emotions course, calming strategies, those sorts of things, then we still want to get to the root cause of why they were angry, especially if it's a really repetitive thing. Right? If someone's taken their toy once and they were angry, well, that's probably just normal. But if it's something that happens every single time, your child might be feeling really overwhelmed or really unable to deal in that circumstance, and you can come in with a strategy to help them. Okay, that is so helpful because you want to be able to help your child, and if you can help them through these smaller things that they don't consider small, but as an adult we know that they're going to reach bigger things and it's going to be harder in lots of ways. If you can give them the building blocks now, some of the building blocks of, okay, what can we try? We can try breathing in and out. We can try, you know, singing Bob the Builder. We do that a bit here. You can try, you know, any of your different little strategies. Again, we cover them in the course that help your child. Your child can then translate that, and you can help them learn to translate that to when they are having these bigger emotional moments that might require some more advanced strategies, yes. But if they've got some smaller ones, they've got something to start with. So when it happens, they're like, oh, I know what to do. Let's take 5 deep breaths together. Okay, so knowing your own emotional indicators is amazingly helpful because you can start to apply that to your child's. Okay, it takes a little while. Let's just say it takes a little while to actually sit back, implement, reassess, understand what's going on, especially if it's a repetitive thing that's quite an issue. Okay, but actually being able to do it is the ability to have emotional intelligence. And that's what we want to pass on to our children. We want them to be able to grow up and know how to do this for themselves. They're not going to learn it without us teaching them. Okay. There you go. That's exactly what I just said. We want to be able to give them this because it's lifelong. This is not something that this is not something that you give them today and then they've forgotten tomorrow. Obviously they might to a point, but you want to keep working on it. But it's actually something that you can give your child and help nurture them into it. And then they walk away with their own skills. Okay, they walk away with lots more skills in this space. Okay, when it comes to emotions. And again, if you don't have emotional intelligence, what are you going to do? You can't you are inhibited in understanding other people. You're inhibited maybe in your learning because you're too busy flying off the handle at everybody. You might miss out on some of that social stuff because you actually don't get that Johnny over there's, making fun of you by the expression on his face, okay, or that someone's angry at you and so you just don't even notice. You might miss some of those real emotional indicators. And then we all know that is not the best way to form friendships and not the best way to learn how to engage socially. Okay, so it's huge for social people. It's huge for all people socially. Okay, so emotional intelligence, we want to be able to do it. We want to be able to teach our kids how to do it. So there you go. So how can you go about teaching this to your small child? Okay, for starters, they need emotionally intelligent parents or parents who understand emotions a bit. Okay, people who understand, yes, we're all learning. We are totally all learning. I'm still learning stuff all the time. But they need you to help them learn, and so they need you to be ahead of them a little bit in the emotional arena so that you can go, you know what? Here's an idea. This works for me. So this is a bit about the Learning Emotions program. So what is the reason for this program? Well, basically, I felt overwhelmed. I felt confused how to deal with my 3-year-old's emotions when my first child was two, I think she was 2 actually, 2.5. She started dinosaur screaming, I call it, at me. And I was like, what do you do with this? That was really, really hard to deal with. But I did manage to learn how to deal with it through asking a lot of people, doing a lot of study, and a fair bit of crying on the couch at night when I didn't work it out. Okay, asking my husband and driving him nuts because he was just like, why? And some people that I knew, so older people that I knew would say, well, you just don't put up with it. And I'm like, well, hang on, that's not really helpful to me because now I don't have a practical strategy. Okay, so what I wanted to do was bring this course and go, now, here are some practical strategies for parents to cope with this stuff, but also the understanding behind it. Okay, so we don't just shut our kids in a box and go, boom, you're not to feel emotions. No, they're allowed to feel emotions, but they still have to be part of our parenting journey, right? They still have to come underneath what we need them to do to continue our household and continue our lives and all those things. I wanted to be able to design something that would do all those things together, that was easy for parents to consume and quite affordable and really, really helpful. Okay, so this program is perfect for you if you would like more understanding about how you can help your child to learn emotions. Okay, if you want to feel less guilty, you want to feel less angry or unsure about what to do, you want to have more strategies, ideas, and knowledge about you and your child's emotions. All right, so there's lots and lots in this program, but it's really well put together. The official goals are: parent can identify their child's emotional feelings, so that's that root cause stuff, and well, it's not really root cause, it's actually the emotional indicator on top. Parent can identify strategies to help their child through that emotional moment in a healthy and constructive way. Okay, so this is like the crux of the whole thing. We want to be able to help our kids, but we don't know how to. Boom. This is the Learning Emotions course literally gives you some strategies. Parents can implement those strategies because you don't want to just know those strategies. You want to actually be able to implement them. And number 4, the child, this is really huge in the course, the child learns some basics about what emotions look, sound, and feel like. So one of the things I do as part of the course is actually go through and go, okay, there's 4 different activities for the parent to do with the child in the course. And I go through talking about their feelings, their little games. There's one called Body Detectives. One of them's reading a book and actually having scripts. I have scripts each week, I think, for the parent-child interaction stuff. Okay, so that's a huge component of the course, is that it literally gives you the activity and the words to say to help your child start thinking about these things. Okay, and start building that emotional intelligence with them. So, have people done this course? Yes, they have. Yes, they have. So Jessie said, you gave me so much confidence in myself. I've been so much calmer with the kids and it really was worth every single penny. Okay, Jessie loved it. She had 2 small children and she just loved it. Okay, I was so stoked. And we need to remember emotions are just the advertisement of the thinking and processing going on underneath. Okay, so it's not that simple. It's really, really helpful to have some of this understanding actually popped in there as well. So the necessary info, okay, I can't talk about this and not give you the info. The Learning Emotions program or the Learning Emotions course, it's a 4-module course. It's self-paced for parents of 3 to 6-year-olds. It's run on Teachable, the simple online course platform, really simple to use, and thousands of people, maybe millions, use it around the world. The course involves 4 learning videos for parents. So you've got 4 videos and you've also got 4 workbooks to go with the videos. You've got also 4 kid and parent interaction activities. So those 4 really well-rounded activities to do with your child, and you've got all the resources there. Okay. And last of all, you also get, because at the last minute I wanted to chuck in, a bunch of handy printables for parents. Okay, and some of these printables are things that talk about emotions. They're things you can use with your children. I think I've put the 5-finger deep breathing reminder sheet in there. They're things, most of them, are things that you can print out if you want to and laminate them and then stick them on the wall. And when your kid's having a moment, you're like, oh, let's do this. Or, hey, I've got a good idea. I'll stick mine in my pantry, by the way. I go to the pantry because I'm usually like, and everyone wants things to eat. So I go in there and go, oh, that's how I'm going to deal with that. Okay, good. That person that's over there having a meltdown right now I know what to do, or I've got an idea now. Okay, I really, really love that. It's great, really good. Here we go. There's another review here. This is from Beck. I didn't put a name down the bottom. This is from Beck. I would highly recommend working with Miranda. I completed an online 4-week partnering course. So I basically set it up for 4 weeks, and it was so valuable to me. She's a great communicator, fun and engaging, thanks Beck, and helped me with great practical strategies. Thank you so much, Miranda, for helping me learn more about my child and myself as a parent. That's one bonus that I've found a lot of parents get out of this, is that they learn more about themselves and their emotions, like I had to back in the day when I was learning this stuff for myself. They learn so much about their own emotions and how they process. And then they've got even more tools to help themselves, but tools to help their child. Okay, so it's super, super valuable. Oops. Okay, so how do you enroll? Okay, if you want to know and you think, wow, that's so what I need, that's exactly what I need for my child, that's what I need for myself. I want to be a parent who really enables my child with their emotions and knows how to start teaching them this stuff as well as yourself. What do you do? So for starters, I'll tell you the price straight up. It's $147. Okay, the course is $147. That's for the 4 modules for the parents, including the workbooks, 4 activities for your child that have scripts and everything involved with them. Okay, literally it's all there. And you also have that big bunch of bonus printables. Okay, really, really good stuff, and it all goes really, really well together. And what you get out of this, what does the parent get out of this? You can start feeling confident that you have effective tools to start teaching your child how to manage their emotions, and by understanding them yourselves. Okay, so if you want to feel confident that you can actually help your child, if you want to feel confident that you know what to do, or you have at least some strategies to try when your child is throwing a tantrum on the floor, okay, when your kid comes to you and goes, oh, I don't know what to do, I feel sad because of la la la, you can maybe go, okay, what are we going to do now? How are we going to manage this? Oh yeah, what does my face look like when it's up, when we're sad? I can tell that you're sad by this. Can you look at my face? Do I look happy right now? Okay, I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's actually really useful because a child can go, oh, mum doesn't look happy, I've done something, or there's something going on that we need to change. Okay, so yes, it's $147, but what price do you put on being able to feel confident that you can give your child this lifelong gift? I think it's really, really well priced to be able to give your child this big gift. So the value of learnt emotional intelligence has a ripple effect on a child's life. Okay, so it's not just now, you are not affecting just the now, you're starting to affect more and more and more into the future. That little activity you do now with your child, or that little bit that you do tomorrow, the little bit more discussion you have with them, doing the activities that are part of the program, learning more about it yourself and learning those strategies has a big ripple effect in your child's life and quite possibly your own life, just quietly. Okay, so there you go. If you want to enroll in the program, you are making a great choice if you do. If you don't, that's completely fine. But if you want to enroll in the program, there's a big pink button below this, on the page below this webinar. So you're literally looking at me in a screen, and now just below it, there'll be a big pink button that says, let's do this. Okay, and you can click on that button and it will take you to the course. Okay, it will take you to, the payment page for the course and more information about it as well. Okay, so I think that's an amazing, amazing value, but I want to hear what you guys think. Okay, send me an email if you want to, smartmamasmartkids@gmail.com. Okay, I'd love to see you there in the course, but if you want to enroll, don't forget to jump on right now and enroll before you forget and before things happen and suddenly tomorrow your child has an emotional moment. You think, oh, or in 2 weeks' time, and you go, oh no, whoops, I meant to apply for that, or I meant to enroll for that. Sorry, you have to apply. You're meant to enroll for that so that I would have a strategy now. Okay, we know about kids' emotions, right? All of us do. Remember, as parents, we are responsible for our young child's learning about themselves and the world. So this is completely up to us. All right. And basically, that's the end of this webinar. I hope you liked the 5 truths your child needs you to know about emotions. I really hope you got a lot out of that. We're talking about emotional indicators, processing, lots of different things. Wow, I can't remember them all off the top of my head right now, but social learning, so being able to need emotions socially and understand each other. All this is really, really important. Okay, so basically, thank you for joining me on this webinar. If you want to send me a message or you want to jump on Instagram or Facebook, check me out at Smart Mama, Smart Kids Parenting, and I would love to talk to you there. But basically, thanks heaps for coming. Don't forget to join the course below right now if you want to. I would love to see you in there, and you are going to get so much out of it. Okay, have a great day, everyone. See ya.